Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good Tavach, Shvua Tov, a good Chodesh, Chodesh Tov. We are in the middle of Mishna Dalet, Perek Yud, Chapter Tes, in Mishnah Yisivamis, Perek Dalet, Mishnah Dalet, Mishnah 4, and we are in the middle. We'll pick it up from where it says Rabbi Yosi Omer, but in order for us to understand the second half of the Mishnah, we have to just quickly review what the first part of the Mishnah said. And the first part of the Mishnah was a case of where a man's wife went to a foreign country. They came and they told him, witnesses came and told him that his wife died. That, based on their testimony, he's allowed to marry her sister. And he did. And then afterwards, his wife showed up. So the Mishnah says she is allowed to go back to him. She's allowed to go back to him. So the way the Mishnah reads, it's kind of straightforward, in the sense that his wife went to a foreign country. He was under the impression she died. He was allowed to go ahead and assume she was dead. He went and married her sister, because the halacha is a man can marry his wife's sister after she dies. And then she shows up. She's alive. So the Mishnah says that what happens here, so first of all, his original wife can go back to him because, again, she didn't do anything wrong. There was no adultery committed on her part here to say that she can't go back to him. Any of this kinds, the fact that he married somebody else when he was still married to her does not have any kind of bearing halacha, any kind of halachic bearing on him. And the Mishnah actually makes no mention of the fact that in this case, so he married the sister, and now we say that the sister can go free, right? We say the sister now, it says that, the wife showed up, which means he never was really married to the sister. And according to the Mishnah makes no mention of having to give a get. You don't have to give a get. The person, when you marry the sister-in-law accidentally, and now she's leaving, you don't have to go ahead and give her a get. There's no mention of a get here in the Mishnah, which means that unlike in the case that we had previously, where the woman got remarried, where she does need a get, in this case there is no mention here of a get to the sister-in-law. The sister-in-law that he thought he was married to, and she thought he was married to him, when her sister shows up alive, and we know there is no marriage here whatsoever, there is no need for any kind of a get to give the sister-in-law, at least in the way the Mishnah reads. However, Rabbi Yosi, who is going to be the next half of the Mishnah, understood that the first half of the Mishnah was talking about a case a little bit more complicated than what we just said. According to Rabbi Yosi, understood in the Tanna Kama that the case is not only talking about where the person's wife, the man's wife, went to a foreign country and they came back and told him that she's dead. And then he went and married her sister. The case actually is that this sister that he is marrying, because he thinks his wife is dead, she was married too. And not only did his wife go to a foreign country, his brother-in-law, his wife's sister's husband, his wife's sister's husband also went to Medina Sayyam. He also went to a foreign country. And when the witnesses came back and said how his wife died, they also said that her husband died. Okay? So we have a situation, that was the case, that both his wife and his brother-in-law, we'll call him, right, they went to Medina Sayyam. The witnesses says both of them died. So he was under the impression he could marry her because his wife is dead. She thought he could marry him because she was under the assumption that her husband was dead. And now they both showed up. Okay? Now, in either case, let's think about this. Can his wife go back to him? Even in this case, can his wife go back to him? Why not? No reason why, just because we're adding to the picture, right, that his brother-in-law also was there and died, which was why he married his sister-in-law, another reason why he married his sister-in-law. The fact that his wife, he thought his wife was dead, and now she comes back alive. Can he remarry her? Why not? There's no reason not to. She didn't commit adultery. He's not considered doing an act of adultery. So So at the end of the day, his wife can go back to him. Can his wife's sister go back to her husband? Based on everything we learned until now, the answer is no. Because the wife's sister is a regular case of a woman whose husband went to a foreign country. One witness came back and said that he died, that allowed her to marry, that if he shows up again, what's the halacha? She can't go back to him. She can't go back to him. She's not allowed to go back to him because of the fact that we say before she remarried, she should have figured out things. She should have figured out things more. She should have checked into things more. So she would go ahead and she would actually not be able to go back to her husband. Okay? Now, that assumption is not only in a case where, right. Right. She can't go back to him. All right? Now, there are two possible cases, even in this scenario. Okay? There's a case where the story was, right, a man was married to a woman. She went to Medina Sayyam. She went far off. She went to far land. They came back and said she was dead. According to the way Rabbi Yossi understood in the Tanakama, whether he went ahead and actually was married to this woman before she left, or all he was just betrothed to that woman before she left, the halacha would be the same. The halacha would be that when it comes to go ahead, when it comes now to when she shows back up, the halacha would be that he is permitted to his wife, whether she was fully married to her or just betrothed to her. His sister, his wife's sister, will not be able to go back to her husband because she was married to the guy, right? And she married based on one witness, and the guy showed up. She's forbidden to him. Okay, that is the assumption. That is how it Rabbi Yossi understood in the first half of the Mishnah. Now this is very important because then we have to. This is based on this. Rabbi Yossi now comes and has a whole different approach here. And what should be going on now? The point, according to Rabbi Yossi, the first thing is like this. We mentioned before that in a case where a woman got married based on one witness, and the first husband shows up, right? First husband shows up. So, and she remarried somebody, and then the first husband shows up. The Mishna said that she cannot go back to the husband, right? She cannot go back to her first husband. Why? Because she was negligent in the fact that she remarried. If the guy showed up, her first husband showed up, that means she didn't check into things well enough before she remarried, and therefore she's penalized because of that. She also needs a get, we said, from her second husband. Why? Because people think she was married to this guy, and now she's just walking away. People will think a married woman could just walk away from her husband. So therefore, midrabban, rabbinically, she needs a get. Okay? So we have two things. We have a penalty for being negligent in her remarriage based on one witness, and we have the fact that she needs a get from her second husband. Rabbi Yossi disagreed partially on that. Rabbi Yossi held that, yes, this woman needs a get from her second husband, from the man that she thought she was allowed to marry because her husband was dead, and our husband shows up. She needs a get from him. Yes, she needs a get because it looks like she looks like she was married to the guy and she's walking away. She needs a get. But the reason why the woman can't go back to her first husband is not because of a penalty. It's not because we look at her as negligent. But rather, what we look at her is like a woman who, if a man's married to a woman, she marries somebody else and gets a get from him. And let's assume he divorced her the first time, right? Mm-hmm. Under normal, regular, under permissible circumstances. Mm-hmm. A man divorces his wife, she remarries, gets divorced from a second husband. Can she go back to the first husband? Absolutely not. Torah says explicitly she cannot. So according to Rabbi Yossi, in the cases of the Mishnah we had until now, you know why she can't go back to her first husband? It's not because she was negligent. She was allowed to get married. And therefore, if it comes out that he was still alive, it was beyond her control. That's not a reason to punish her. The reason she can't go back to the first husband is because since she needs to get from the second husband, if he takes her back, it looks like he's taking back a woman. He looked like he's taking back his ex-wife who got divorced from her second husband, which you're not allowed to do. That is the issue according to Rabbi Yossi. Okay, that's the issue according to Rabbi Yossi. Now, based on that, Rabbi Yossi says the following. Okay. So let me read to you. Okay, now let me read to you now before we read the Mishnah, because at least you'll get an understanding about it beforehand. Since the reason she may not return to her first husband is because she received a get from her second husband, it follows that in a case where she does not need a get from her second husband, let's say we have such a case. Say such a case where she does need a get from her second husband, she may return to the first husband. Right? We don't know the case of that yet, but let's set down a principle, right? If she wouldn't need a get from her second husband, there's no reason she can't go back to her first husband. Okay, according to Rabbi Yossi, our Mishnah is such a case. When the first sister returns from overseas, everyone will realize that her husband's marriage to the second sister was a mistake. And they were never truly married. Consequently, there is no need for him to give her a get. And since the second sister does not receive a get from him, she will return to her first husband. Get that? In the case where in our Mishnah, she was married to, he married his sister-in-law, thinking his wife was dead, right? She shows up. Now the first wife shows up. Everybody knows that was a grand mistake. Yeah. There's nothing to talk about. There was no marriage there whatsoever. She doesn't need a get. Everyone understands why she's walking. She was never married to him. It was his wife's sister. And therefore, if there is no get from the second husband, no reason there's no reason now that she can't go back to her first, to her real husband. Again, so in the case where the Mishnah is saying that not only did his brother-in-law also went to Medina Sayyam, also went far off, and there was a witness that both of them died. Now they both show up. She can go back to her first husband. There's no reason not to. Everybody knows why. Everybody understands why she's going back. Because her sister was still alive. Yeah. Okay? Because her sister was still alive. Therefore, according to Rabbi Yossi, in this case, she will be able, basically what's going to happen is that he gets it, his wife goes back to him, and his sister goes back to her husband. Okay? However, now listen to this. However, this is true only if the husband of the first sister had been fully married to her with Nesuin. If he was only betrothed to her before she went to overseas, it was only Kedushin, then even when she returns, people will not realize that his later marriage to the second sister was a mistake. Rather, they will think that his betrothal to the first sister had been based on some condition. Meaning, in this case, we have in the case where the wife was only betrothed to him. Now, again, if you make Kedushin on a woman, you can't marry her sister. Okay? But the thing is, when she shows up, people are going to think, you know why? You know what happened here? He was married to her. He was married to her sister. How could he be married to her sister? She's alive. Must be. Then when he made the Kedushin on this woman who, again, went to a foreign country, he made it on a certain condition. On the condition you come back you want to go on a vacation, you want to go to the Bahamas for a little vacation, you got to be back in a month. You're back in a month, the Kedushin stays. You're not back in a month, the Kedushin doesn't stay.
You can do that?
Yeah, you can do that by Kedushin. You can do that. Now, people are going to think that's what happened. Not necessarily that's what happened, but people are going to think, how could he have been married to her sister if she's around? It must be that Kedushin never worked. It must be the Kedusha never took hold, never took effect, because there was some kind of condition on the Kedushin. Oh, so that means people are going to think that she was really married to him. If people think she's really married to him, then she can't just walk without a get. she has to get a get then from him. Oh, if she gets a get from him, she can't go back to her first husband. Because once she gets a get, it looks like she's taking back the woman he divorced that he was once married to, who remarried, and he wants to take her back. So according to Rabbi Yossi, it becomes a little bit counterintuitive, but at the same time, it's because of the fact that he learned the whole halacha before differently. So let's now read the Mishnah. The Mishnah reads, Rabbi Yossi says, Kol shapayser al yedei acherim. Anytime this man, invalidates others, payser al yedei atzmai, he's going to validate for himself too. This means, in the case we just said, right, where the woman that went to his wife that went away he only made kedushin on her, and now and then he marries her sister because he thought she was dead. She shows up. We just said that she needs a get from him because people are going to think that they really were married. That's what we're going to think. We're going to think they really were married, and therefore she needs a get. If she needs a get, she can't go back to her first husband, right? Right. Guess who else can't go back to someone? His wife, the woman he made kedushin on. She can't go back to him either. You know why? Because if he gave her sister a get, which means we consider it rabbinically that they were married and they need a get, then his wife is the sister of the woman he divorced. Rabbinically. It comes out that no one can go back to anyone. Wow. Not only can't the sister go back to her husband, his wife can't go, his mureses, the woman he betrothed can't get married to him. Because now she's the sister of the woman he divorced. You can't marry the sister of the woman you divorced. That's what it means. Kol shapaisal al yedei acherim. If you invalidate others, paisal leyatzma, you invalidate for yourself too. Kol she'ein paisal yedei acherim. But if you don't invalidate others, like in the case where you actually married the woman who went away, and then you married her sister, where in that case we say, hey, they were married. How could he have married her sister? Answer is, big mistake. There never was a marriage to the second. Mm-hmm. Therefore, she doesn't need a get from the guy. If she doesn't need a get from the guy, ain't a paisal leyatzmai, doesn't invalidate for himself either. Because now his wife isn't the sister of the woman he divorced. And can't say they lived happily ever after, but that's the bottom line. Bottom line is the bottom line. Yeah. According to Rabbi Yossi, the bottom line is that really depending on the situation of according to Rabbi Yossi, we have a more involved case than just the woman leaving. We have also his wife, her sister's husband leaving, and depending on guarding his wife, whether he was actually married to her or only had kedushin on her, that'll make a difference as to whether anybody can go back to anybody.
Yeah, yes. Can you pick me up off the floor now, please?
Maybe some people will send they'll send an ambulance or something. All right. Now, we said before that if you go ahead and you praise someone in front of either people that don't like the person or if it's in public, that we consider a vak lashon hara, a dusting of lashon hara. And that could even be so if you don't do it in public, meaning you're going over to one person, two people, and you're praising this guy over the top. So Chofetz Chaim says, that could cause others to say, well, he's not 100%. Mm-hmm. Okay? But if you don't overdo it, and you're not doing it in front of his enemies, you're okay. But that only is true, says the Chofetz Chaim, if you're not doing it publicly. If it's in public, it would be forbidden. Because if you have a lot of people there, when you have a lot of people together, you're always going to find people. Some people are pros, some people are more positive, some people are more negative, some people are more zealous. And maybe if he did something wrong, they're all worked up about it. And therefore, if you're going to start praising him, they're going to start putting him down because that's just a reaction that comes up from among people. But let's say you're going down talking about if you want to praise a person that is well established as a appropriate person and that he hasn't done anything obviously wrong. Because then anybody who wants to go ahead and put him down, no one's going to accept it. I'm sorry, right? He won't be able to put him down. If he does, then everybody's going to know that he was not. That's just not true. So the Chofetz Chaim is making interesting qualifications when it comes to praising other people. Have again a wonderful day, a good Tvach, Shavua Tov, a good Chodesh Tov.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.